Now that the series finale of The Bad Batch is out and this whole series I can kind of encapsulate into one thing, I wanted to give my thoughts. I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but I didn't make a video for last week's episode of The Bad Batch. And honestly, I planned on it, but there just wasn't much going on in that episode. It was really setting up the finale, and those last 3 episodes before the finale kind of did the same thing. They all kind of felt dragged out, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because overall, this 3rd and final season has been the best of the 3, at least in my opinion. But now that the finale to the entire series has premiered, I just want to discuss what I think about it and just go back kind of retroactively looking on this whole series as a whole. We're going to do a quick little breakdown of this finale and all of the things that happen and where I think it could possibly go. So before we get started, if you guys could hit the subscribe button and like the video, let's see if we can get this video to at least 30 likes. Also, we're close to 1,400 subs, so if you could hit that button, it would mean the world to me. It's free. Now, let's break down the finale. So first, I want to talk about how Omega frees the Zillo Beast. And we've seen this creature in previous episodes and previous seasons, but I think the freeing of it in this episode is very symbolic. The Empire is hoping to control a force that they have no power to govern, and not only are they doing this with the Zillo Beast, but it's kind of referencing the whole fact that they're trying to clone Force-sensitive children or just, harvest midichlorians. The Empire is trying to do something unnatural here, and nature always wins. This is being shown here with the freeing of the Zillo Beast, and I thought that was really cool. We see Hemlock with a bunch of these new Clone X troopers, and I thought we were going to maybe get some sort of reveal here with Clone X being a cloned member of the Bad Batch and having all of them kind of have their own mirrored evil versions of themselves, but this doesn't happen, and the whole theory about who Clone X is and stuff really just doesn't pan out. It's kind of similar to a Marok situation from Ahsoka, and now that I've had a couple days to think about it, and there are a couple things in this episode that leave kind of loose ends or things that they set up in the past that don't necessarily pay off, I'm okay with it because this story has never been about the cameos or its connectiveness to the greater universe as a whole. Sure, it has these connective elements, with Project Necromancer being the main focus of this season, but the story that they're trying to tell is solely focused on the Bad Batch and their interpersonal relationship with Omega and how they survive all of this stuff. And that they do expertly. So while we don't see Commander Cody or we don't see Captain Rex or we don't find out who Clone X is, I think I'm okay with it because it's not taking anything away from the connections and the time that we get to spend with our normal Bad Batch characters. This also goes for characters like Asajj Ventress, Fennec Shand, and all of the other characters that have been making brief appearances in this season. They don't make any appearances in this finale, even though the episode is titled The Cavalry Has Arrived. It focuses solely on the Bad Batch and why this series is about them. And with that being said, it was super special seeing the whole team back together for the first time since season 1. All of them helping out one another, realizing they can only do this if they're all together. However, there's one thing that I just really wasn't happy about with this episode, and that's Rampart. I thought Rampart, after realizing, he'd been betrayed by the Empire and he was kind of being somewhat of a good guy in the last couple episodes, I thought maybe he'd do a full heel turn and become one of the Bad Batch, but here he actually does the opposite. And I guess it's in character for him, but I was really just holding out hope that he would eventually turn good. But in the finale, he's trying to regain his Empire power, and Lama Su prevents this from happening by blowing both of them up. I think Lama Su definitely was one of those characters where I could see her not making it out just because the fact that she is very based around the whole clone creation aspect of the Clone Wars, of Attack of the Clones, so leading into the original trilogy, she can't really be a part of it. It just made me a little frustrated because I think we were working towards maybe a redeemed Rampart, but then he just goes back to his old ways. But a very minor gripe. I love the action sequences we get in this episode, especially with the whole team working to fight against all of these specialty clones. It was so great seeing them all together, and we get this climactic moment on a bridge where Hemlock is holding Omega hostage and the Bad Batch has to save her. And I love how they tied it back to the theme that's been going throughout this whole episode of Crosshair's redemption, where he's having this issue with his hand, but he's able to switch hands and shoot with his opposite hand to save Omega's life and finally kill Hemlock. After the Bad Batch escapes, we see Tarkin return, and he actually moves funding from Project Necromancer to Project Stardust. Project Stardust, of course, is what leads to the creation of the Death Star. And while I was a little annoyed that Rampart turned bad again, I am very happy that Emery is now a member of the Bad Batch, because after all, she is a clone. And when I first watched this, I was like, okay, is this it? Is the episode gonna end here? It's a very typical storybook happy ending. They just beat the bad guys. But then we get the moment that really saved this episode for me. And that's the time jump that takes us right before the events of New Hope. We see that the Bad Batch got their happy ending, such a stark contrast from the ending of the Clone Wars that was super bleak. We see Omega is completely grown up and Hunter is older now. Omega has to go fight the Empire with the rebels. This is her fight now. Her brothers no longer need to fight for her because they've allowed her to do this for herself. And yeah, it's a little sad seeing Hunter this old, but seeing Omega grown up and being a soldier and being a good leader was so worth it. I have a feeling we're probably going to see Omega in live action at some point in the future, but I don't really think we need to touch the Bad Batch themselves anymore. The more I think about it, this series was perfect. We don't need to touch these characters again. There was no overuse of cameos or shocking events that pulled away from these characters in this finale, and I'm very glad that they did this, because this time jump at the very end just makes you feel something more for these characters, and it's a very, very happy ending. And like I said, compared to the Clone Wars, I think these guys deserve it. Overall, I thought season 3 was the best of the 3 seasons, and I think in a couple years time, I'm probably going to watch this all over again, just because I've really enjoyed these characters and really acknowledging that this series has made these characters staples to Star Wars. These characters aren't going to be forgettable, they're always going to be remembered for this. So yeah, I'm very happy with how this episode ended and how this series ended. No one else needed to die, none of the crazy theories came true, they just told a good story with characters that we like. Let me know down below what you guys thought about the Bad Batch finale and Bad Batch as a whole. I read every single one. I most likely will respond, and look out for the video in regards to Tales of the Empire. I'm about to watch it right after this video. So I will see you all very, very soon.